know my weakness. Anything you want it all. You know my needs. Are your loving arms? You know I'm helpless against your charm.
Hi, everybody. This is Richard Sachs, your host on Lost Arts Radio. Nice to see you again. And I've thought about today's show, and it really fits into what's happening in the world right now, because a lot of people are feeling the stress of things happening around us in many of the Western countries, certainly, and really all over the world, trying to deal with a lot of uncertainty. And some of the people are feeling more of a challenge in dealing with it than usual, because they're dealing with various kinds of circumstances in their own lives, maybe economically, with everything being shut down in the world around us and that sort of thing. And I wanted to give a little bit of inspiration today and show that if you've got difficulties that you're dealing with or obstacles to overcome, you don't have to let that make you feel helpless and weak and victimized. There are people who take it as the exact opposite, as a challenge to do the most with what is going well and workable in your life that you possibly can. And it also made me remember our recent talk with Gareth Ike, who's a musician. And he was saying that, well, music is pretty much shut down, and, things are a little bit tougher in the UK than they have become so far in the US, although we're right on their heels with the development in a negative direction that we want to turn around. But he was saying, well, the music industry is gone. And, we have examples that may be true locally in some places to some degree. But in the U.S., there are still people, and I'm sure in other countries too, that are taking advantage of what is still possible to do. And one of our friends, Joey Stuckey, who's been a musician for a long time, has been dealing with some obstacles that a lot of people don't have to deal with. And that's that as a baby, long time ago, he lost his sense of sight and smell and couldn't deal with things in those realms. And so he got really interested in the sense of hearing and the world of music, and developed that to an incredible extent, and is still going strong in that area with his own studio. And I thought, wow, maybe we could get a little bit of insight directly from Joey, if he'd be willing to do an actual show with us and get a feeling for his background, and maybe start where his life story started and bring it up to the present through whatever steps he wants to, and then what he's developed and what is currently going on in his world that's very active in the music industry, to show that it's not gone. And if you're creative and determined, there aren't limits in what you can do. And fortunately, he said that he would do that for us. And I thought that was great. So welcome, Joey, and thanks for being here.
It was my pleasure, sir.
It's going to be a fun tour of your life and your work and your actual physical studio. And I have to say one more thing. We recently had a show with Dr. Michael Christian, an amazing optometrist, and said, Dr. Christian, why don't you take us into your office and set up like a imaginary patient and walk us through that? And he said, fine. And he brought a real patient, and it was amazing. And all of you guys got to be right in the office while he worked with an actual patient. We're doing the same thing with music today, and we're going to get some background and then go into Joey's studio and get a tour. So you want to tell us a little bit, Joey, about relevant points in your life that led up to right now, and then we'll get into what you're doing in the present.
Absolutely. It's my great pleasure to be here with you, and I am so excited because you're doing something positive right now. Exactly. And that's tough. It's tough. And I, in a way, I've been kind of built for this moment, because when I was 18 months old, they discovered the brain tumor that took my eyesight along with my sense of smell, but it also destroyed my endocrine system. So I don't have, for example, adrenal function.
I didn't even know that. Wow. Okay.
That's tricky.
That would be really tricky. I didn't think you could function without that system operating.
I regulate it. There's a lot of different things I have to do every single day. When I wake up in the morning, I feel like I've been run over by a truck. And it takes me, about 3 hours to get my act together, because I have to wait. When I first wake up, I think, oh God, I'll never get out of bed today. But I sit up on the edge of the bed and I sit there for a minute and go, God, I'll never stand up today. And then I stand up, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get ready today. But then I'm like, but I force myself, even though I feel like I cannot.
So these hormones that are normally secreted by the adrenal glands all over the body, that's not happening in your system.
Yeah, right. So one of my big challenges with that is to hydrate real well. So I have fluids are real critical for me, right. Because that helps maintain a lot of systems. So there's a lot of things going on there that I have to do. Now, I have been blessed in many, many ways to find some very gifted doctors over the years who have taken really good care of me, took a special interest in me. Okay. I also happen to be married to not only the smartest person I know and the love of my life, but she's an advanced practice nurse. So that comes in quite handy.
Things lined up pretty well in that.
Yeah, I did really well. So these challenges, my early life, and I guess I should just clarify. Once I get going in the morning, my clients never know that I've got a problem. I have to watch it because when I get in the zone and I'm making music, sometimes I forget to drink enough fluids and stuff like that. Yeah. And my wife or one of the people that works here will look at me and go, "You look a little pale, drink this." And they just shove a drink in my hand and I drink it.
I don't see your water bottle sitting there next to you.
Yes, I have this lovely bottle that I should take the label off of because I'm not getting paid. But
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, once I get my act together, I'm good to go for the day. But as a child, I mean, my whole first, 15 years or so were extremely traumatic. Almost died a couple of times, and they actually said to my parents. My mom, by the way, was really concerned. She felt like there wasn't something quite right with her child. Mm-hmm. And she said, I think something's wrong with my child. And they said, oh, you're just an overprotective mother. Go home and bake cookies or whatever. But, parents know their kids. And right. And eventually what happened was my dad let go of my hand. And when he went to do something, let go of my hand, we were at his office. And I took 2 steps forward and fell down a flight of like 30 stairs. And I didn't realize they were there. They rushed me to the hospital. I was actually okay for the fall. The fall apparently didn't hurt me. Apparently I have a very hard head. So I was okay for the fall, but they're like, oh, I think this kid can't see. And then they realized that indeed I had a brain tumor. And the brain tumor was not cancerous in the sense that it was non-malignant. But what was happening was it was growing at such an exponential rate, like just really fast, that it was just chewing up the wiring on the inside of my head, basically.
And how old were you at that point?
Well, by the time I had the surgery, I was 2 years old, but everything first got diagnosed when I was about 18 months. Okay, and you can see, I'm going to take these glasses off. You can see my eyes on the outside are actually, normal. Yeah. A lot of blind guys wear glasses. I'm wearing glasses right now because I don't usually look at anything, obviously. Right now, I've got my eyes focused towards the camera, generally speaking, where I hear your voice coming from. Mm-hmm, and there's a lot of light on me. And it makes my eyes water.
Okay, got it.
So I have the glasses on for that reason. Now, when I perform, I put them on partly because it's part of my brand. Because what I do when I perform is I tell a lot of stories about being blind and about all these different things. That's part of the brand. But just to show, I mean, there's nothing actually wrong with the outside of my eyes. It's all internal stuff.
Right, got it. Okay.
But anyway, my first 15 years or so were real traumatic. A lot of time spent in the hospital. I spent over 3 months in ICU after the brain tumor surgery. And, compared to today's medicine, it was terribly primitive. I've got a scar. They had to take this whole part of my skull to get to the tumor. So I've got a scar that goes from this ear all the way around to sort of the center of my forehead there.
Okay.
And they told my parents Actually, the first doctor told my parents that I was going to die and forget about it.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, well, you're not doing the surgery. And so they found another doctor to do it. He said, look, here's the deal. It's going to be an 8-hour surgery. It's unlikely that he'll survive. But if he does, he probably will not walk or talk. And Richard, I know you to be a man of spirit. And so I think you'll appreciate that. The doctor said, if we come out in less than 8 hours, you need to be prepared that your son didn't make it.
Yeah.
They came out in 3 hours. And the doctor told my parents, he said, I don't really know how else to explain it, except that I feel like a higher power took hold of my hands and I lifted the tumor out. And that was it. And that did not mean that we had an easy road. We did not. But the fact is, from an early age, my parents did something rather brilliant. And that was, they always kept me focused on what was possible instead of what wasn't possible. Always focus on affirmation over fear.
That is
and
brilliant.
I think right now, this is a time that lesson is really important, because instead of saying this day, September 29th, this day is the day you almost died, they chose to frame it that it's the day you beat the odds. It's the day you lived.
Exactly.
And
right.
It's kind of a small thing, but it's so critical to understand, how to really survive and thrive in the world. And this right side of my body, I mean, medically, people say that this doesn't make sense, but it's hard for me not to feel like the right side of my body's had a bit of a pounding, because later in life, I had to have a total hip replacement on my right side. I had something called a vascular necrosis. I was misdiagnosed for over a year with bursitis, and then one day my hip literally just died and crumbled into dust, essentially. And I had to have a total hip replacement on this right side, was wheelchair bound for 6 months or so. And I've had to have a total shoulder replacement on this right side as well. And it's just hard for me to, think, well, I've got this big scar on the skull on this side. The tumor was kind of more on the right side. So the right side's had a bit of a beating.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Wow. But I mean, my focus has always been, what do I do to live my life? What do I do to live my life? What do I have to do to make that work? And so, for example, when I was in the wheelchair, they didn't want to do the hip replacement surgery. Nobody wanted to do it because I was so young. I was in my 20s. And they're like, man, you're so young. And I said, yeah, I understand what you're saying. But, one doctor actually suggested, well, if you could stay in the wheelchair, 15, 20 years, and then do the hip surgery, that'd probably be best. And I said, man, that's crazy. I said, I need to live my life. I need to walk. I said, look, I understand what you're saying about me being so young, and I respect that opinion. But if I sit in this wheelchair for 20 years, my legs will atrophy and I won't be able to walk anyway.
That's right.
So let's get out of the wheelchair now, live the life I can now, and we will deal with whether I have to have another hip replacement or whatever later. And let's be honest, I'm not an athlete. I'm not out wrestling or playing football or anything, or hockey or baseball. So the wear and tear I get on my joints is not going to be the same thing as a sport, someone that's an athlete. So the hip that I have actually had a lot of use in Europe, and it has a 30-year or greater now track record of not needing any revisions or replacements or anything. It's old school. It's not the new plastic stuff, but it's an old school hip. It required about a 14-inch incision on my leg. But if anybody ever sees that scar, I tell them I got it in a sword fight.
Yeah, obviously. Right.
Why would I not be in the sword fight? So
I'll make sure I say that if anybody asks.
You should. I mean, because, you might as well have fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I can't change the fact that I have these health challenges. That's beyond my power. But what I can do is control my attitude about it. And that is not to say that every single day I am thrilled to death to be blind or to be. There are days that it's challenging.
Yeah.
There are days, but I think if I was happy all the time, you should worry for me. That would be concerning.
You might be a cyborg.
Seriously. I mean, so my position is, let us feel all the things we feel to be human. And it's totally okay to say, I'm not happy with this. I'm frustrated. I'm even angry. What you don't want to do is live in that state. The state that you want to live in is a state of hope, a state of grace. And those are the things that you live there, and occasionally you have to visit the other places. It's all a balance. But I do believe, I've had a couple of things happen to me since in the last 2 years. I had a really bad hospital stay when I had my complete shoulder replacement back in 2018. It was very difficult. I don't feel like I got the care I needed. There was some bad incidences with that. Yeah. Also, when I was in the hospital, nobody could seem to comprehend the concept of blind, which I find, pretty easy. Eyes don't work. It's pretty simple. I had to keep explaining to them, literally one woman almost shoved a thermometer up my nose, even though I told her I couldn't see. And it was just crazy. And so then we were on tour and I was traveling and I still wasn't feeling real great after the surgery, but I was out doing my job and working. Mm-hmm. And this lady, we were in LAX, and this lady literally started screaming, get out of my way, and rammed into my wife and I purposely into our luggage cart, knocked all of our luggage out into the street, knocked the luggage cart over. I had to step back because the cart was falling on top of me. And my wife, meanwhile, was screaming, don't move, but I couldn't. I had to move. And I had to step out into the road where there was traffic. Right. And if you can imagine, if you close your eyes for a moment and your whole world's sound and all around you is just utter chaos and you don't know which way to move. And I felt so amazed that someone would act that way, and that would put potentially put me in danger of being harmed. It was really traumatic. I thought, Lord, am I up to, I've had a difficult medical thing with the shoulder. Now I'm out here. I can't even walk, out of the airport without being knocked over because I can't see where I'm going. Right. And, it's like, am I up to the challenge of doing what I do? And it was a scary moment. And I'm kind of giving you the Cliff Note version here.
Yeah. But did you ever find out what made that lady so crazy or whatever?
No. But here's the beautiful part. In that moment of sheer terror, and it was terrifying because I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that things were falling everywhere. And so things were slamming, things were hitting me, people were screaming. This wonderful couple came out of the crowd of people. Everybody, by the way, 90% of the people just kept doing their stuff and didn't even stop. Mm-hmm. But these two people came to us, grabbed me, grabbed the luggage, helped us get everything back together. We were shaken, to be sure, and would not leave our side until we got into our rental car.
It's a good thing for all the listeners to think just for a second, which group would they have been in? Yeah, well, I've got an album I'm working on about these experiences and about some of the self-doubt and things that I had to cope with and some of the terror of being blind. Because when I was in the hospital, I felt powerless. I felt like I wasn't being listened to. I felt like they were not listening to me as a patient. Somebody actually injected me twice with something I was allergic to. And I felt really powerless. And then this thing happened with my traveling, by being knocked down. And, I have to talk about these things because if I don't, they'll become so big that they're hard to cope with. So I talk about it, even though I'm not, right. even though that's not my first choice of icebreakers, but I talk about it. Completely agree with you. Suppression is a way to make those things bigger.
Well, it is. And all I know in my life is the only thing you can do is shine a light. All you can do is shine a light. If you don't shine a light on what's going on and what you believe and what you feel and the experiences you have, the only way I know to defeat things that are dangerous, malignant, evil, whatever you want to call it, right, is to shine a light on it and talk about it. That's all I know. Those are the things I can do. Yeah. And so I do that whether I want to or not. And but I called that moment and this new album I'm working on Tiny Redemptions. And it's kind of a play on words because it was a tiny moment where two people stopped what they were doing and forgot everything that was going on in their lives to help two complete strangers. And it was a moment that redeemed everything I was feeling, all the fear, all the confusion, all the worry about whether I was up to the challenge of continuing to do what I do. Mm-hmm. It was a moment where all that turned. And so that moment of redemption, and moments of redemption, I call it tiny redemptions, but really they're not tiny. So it's, a moment of redemption is not a tiny thing, but it was just this one moment in these people's lives that, had they made another choice, my life would have been very different. And I think that's really, but that's the thing. That's why I'm particularly suited to being an artist, because art requires two parts. One part all about spirit and love and humanity, mm-hmm. and what it means to be human, and to discuss that and philosophize about it. And then it requires a total dedication to science, because there's all these technical elements that go into the making of the art. And so I love that about what I've chosen to do in my life. And, as I said earlier, I really, until I was about 15 years old, really didn't know what I was going to do in my life, because it was all focused on survival at that point. I didn't start getting sort of a handle on my health until I was about 15. And I've still certainly had many challenges since then. But before that, it was a lot of hospital stays. I was just focusing on trying to go to school. And by the way, I never went to a blind school. I just sort of toughed it out with everybody else and had to use my memory. And, and then eventually when I got into high school and started doing geometry and things like that, I had to have someone be my eyes. My parents fortunately had enough money that they could pay someone to be my eyes and read the board to me and tell me what was on the board and stuff like that. Because, mm-hmm. It's real hard for a teacher with 30 kids to give one kid more attention than the rest. That's a difficult thing to do. Right. But anyway, it's exciting right now to be an artist, even though I'm not enjoying the time we live in. My Yelp review of 2020 is 0 stars, would not recommend. And it's been a crazy year.
Why is that?
Well, it's just been so crazy. It's been so hard this year. The music business certainly has been turned upside down. All of our lives have been turned upside down with a number of different factors that you kind of alluded to at the beginning of the show. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that gives me hope and great joy at this moment is that I know music is a powerful force for positive change. I know that it's healing. I know that it's uniting. I know that it brings a smile to your face when you're sad, or it allows you to empathize with somebody else's pain. And those are all really valuable experiences and ways that we can continue to be connected to each other as human beings. So I think that what I'm doing right now is more important than it ever has been. But that being said, from a business standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, I feel like I'm doing a lot of good. From a business standpoint, it's kind of tricky. But there have been many, many times in the music business that we all thought the sky was falling and that the music business was over. And it just changed form. It was not, right. Transformation's never easy. It's painful. But it can happen. I mean, I don't know if you remember historically, but when they first invented the player piano, everybody thought, oh gosh, nobody's going to come see live music anymore. They felt the same way when people started doing, wax cylinders and phonographs. Mm-hmm. Oh, people aren't going to come see live music anymore because now they have these recordings. They thought that with the player piano that sheet music was dead, that people weren't going to, if you could just put a roll in the piano to play the music for you, nobody would want to learn sheet music. But all those things, none of those things happened. Of course, everybody's like, oh, the music industry is over because now there's digital downloads and CDs are dead and vinyl's dead. Well, of course, vinyl's back with a vengeance. So I've even sold a lot of vinyl on tour at, some clubs and places like that. We sold a ton of vinyl in 2019. So the music business has always really been in some state of flux. And there have been many watershed moments, but they always end up, coming back in some form, because at the end of the day, while music is not, it's not bread or water or clothing, but once those things are taken care of, music's pretty essential to feed the soul.
You were saying that vinyl is still going really good. I would think that the limiting factor would be the number of people with old style phonographs to play those, right?
Well, they're making new phonographs again. You can buy one for about $100. That's not bad. Of course, there are some really nice ones out there that are $500.
Right.
But they have them even at Walmart or anywhere else. So vinyls, it certainly is a niche market as opposed to widespread. The primary way that people are consuming music these days is through streaming, online streaming. Yeah. Things like Spotify, YouTube, stuff like that. And that's kind of a problem for us in one way, because the royalty rate for that stuff's really bad. But in another way, if we can get those royalty rates up, which is something I've been working to do. I mean, I in my very small way, I just, I sign letters and contact my congressman and stuff like that and say, hey, please support increasing the royalty rates and stuff like that. But if we can get those royalty rates up, and in a long-term career, streaming is actually better for you, because every time you play that song, I get paid. Now, right now, it's like 0.2 of a penny. Yeah. That's the royalty rate. So if you're listening to this and you have a band that you love, you have an artist that you love, by all means, stream them, enjoy the music wherever and whenever you want. But please do go out and buy their album either as a download or a CD or vinyl or a Blu-ray video, or buy a T-shirt, because right now those streaming royalties are really not enough to make a good living in the music business. And I reject the concept that poor and artists have to be the same thing.
I completely agree.
But through things like Patreon and things like that, you can mobilize that dedicated fan base. And the great thing about our time right now with all the social media and stuff like that, a lot of things you can say about social media that aren't positive. But one thing in the music business that is positive is you can reach out to your fans and ask them, what do you want to consume from me? Do you want a new album? Do you want me to remaster an old album? Do you want me to press vinyl of a record that hasn't been on vinyl before? Do you want a new T-shirt? Do you want a coffee mug? You can actually chat with these people and get a sense of what product will sell. So you have direct-to-fan marketing that really is rather helpful if you take the time to actually communicate with your fan base that way. You can find out exactly what they want. If you're providing what somebody wants, then you have a pretty good chance of selling that product.
Yeah, exactly. So when did the whole music involvement really start for you? I read in your bio that it was about age 17 or so. Is that true?
Yeah. So my mom and dad, music has always been a huge part of my family. And my mom and dad had music playing through the house all the time. My mom did a lot of hymns. She's a Baptist preacher's daughter. Mm-hmm. And so we had a lot of hymns and what we call in school sacred music. So we had a lot of sacred music. Then my dad had played in a country band as a hobby for a long, long time. So there was country going on. It's kind of a funny story. And when I was little, my parents worked really hard to describe the world around me, to make sure I understood, what things were, and really took a lot of pains, spent a lot of time with me to educate me on, everything. But they missed two things that took a while for me to figure out. They showed me the knob on the radio that turned the volume up and down. Mm-hmm, but until I was 7, I didn't realize you could change the channel.
You did eventually figure it out, though.
So what happened was I went to school one day and I heard someone playing some music, and I asked this kid, I was like, hey, what is that? He's like, that's rock and roll, man. And so that was when I started listening to rock and roll, is hearing it at school. And then the other thing that I did not learn until I was watching a comedy special was that stop signs are actually octagons. Never knew that because all the toy stop signs that I had when I was a kid were round.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was just assumed they were round. I missed the fact they were octagon. But yeah, anyway, so music was always a big part of our life. We listened to it a lot. It always filled the home. My parents always were singing and, playing music. My dad and his twin brother played. And so whenever they got together, they'd play music and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't start, again, I really wasn't healthy enough to think about stuff like that until about 15. And my career really began as a sound person because sound's my universe. I mean, it is how I'm informed of everything around me. It's how I think of things. And, I believe that everything's vibration, everything's vibrating.
Yeah.
And so, it's really sound is a very obvious way of understanding that, but it's true. You can figure it out whether you're a philosopher or a religious person or a scientist. Everybody agrees that the universe is vibration. So for me, sound is how I understand things. And I became obsessed with the idea of recording sounds. And when I was sick with pneumonia, I spent the whole summer sick in bed, and I couldn't really do anything. And I discovered old-time radio shows from the 1950s, things like The Lone Ranger, The Shadow.
Right.
And then later on, there were some more modern radio shows that people were still producing in the 80s. Here in the United States, radio shows are not that big. In Canada and the UK, they're still really big. And the BBC does it better than anybody else. But I started hearing all these radio shows, and I thought, I could do that. I can make those sounds. Because for a blind person, radio is perfect because the story is told through music, sound effects, and dialogue.
Right.
And it was just beautiful. And so it was a real watershed moment for me. And I started becoming obsessed with recording sounds. And, I still am. My parents, I carried a very primitive tape recorder with me. It was big and bulky, and I carried it with me everywhere I went. Whenever I heard an interesting sound, I'd stop, and my parents very sweetly indulged me and let me go up to strangers and go, "Hey, can I record you making that sound?" I remember one time we were on the beach, and there was a guy that was sanding his boat. He had a little, I don't know what kind of boat it was, but it was a small little one-person boat. I don't know if it's a kayak or what, but he was sanding it on the beach. He was sort of sanding the bottom of it. And I said, "Hey, can I come record you doing that? That's a cool sound." And just stuff like that. And, I still do it today. My wife and I were on tour in Hawaii back in 2004. I was on tour over there. We were lucky enough to have a private beach where we were staying. And I went out in the middle of the ocean with my digital microphone and my recorder on a drinks tray and stood there for half an hour while the surf broke around me. And I just recorded that, captured that. We were in New York in 2005, and we were walking down the street, and it was the 31st and 5th, I think. And the rhythm of the traffic just transported me to a new world. It was just, it was just amazing to hear. And I just stopped right there, pulled my recorder out of my bag, set my little microphones up, and stood on a street corner for 15 minutes and just recorded traffic going by. And my sweet wife didn't think I was nuts or anything. So
you're really tuned into the details of sound.
Oh yeah,
that you're picking up.
Recently, I had kind of like a bucket list thing happen for me. I've known Alan Parsons, been very, very blessed to know him and to learn from him and to be part of a few recording sessions with him. And Alan, for those of you who don't know, of course, had the Alan Parsons Project, was the producer with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, worked at Abbey Road during the Beatles' time there. And Alan sent me a message for my Alive Day, which is September 29th, the day I beat that brain tumor. And he sent me a video message this year, and he said that I had the best ears in the business and that I knew everything that was happening in the studio. So I am very, very much attuned. And one time I was telling him I was sitting way out of mix position. So mix position means that you're in the center of the board and you're back from it a little bit. You're kind of in the center so you can hear both speakers evenly, or if you've got a 5.1 system or whatever, you're in the center of that system. But I was way off to one side, kind of like I am now, except even further. I don't know how much you can see, but I'm kind of on the left side of my console. And if I was going to do a real record, I'd be kind of in the center here, but I'm kind of on the left side. So anyway, I was sitting way off to one side. The speakers were not aimed at me at all. I was way off axis. And I said, hey, on the left channel, the second vocal track, there's a mistake. There's a bad edit. And there's some clicks and some pops and stuff. And everybody in the room was like, I don't hear anything. I'm like, I promise it's there. And they're like, okay. And so they sort of like, let's humor this guy. So they pulled it up and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you heard that. And it's not that my ears are magically better. It's not like physiologically there's something special there. It's all brain power. Sight.
You're giving them a lot more attention to the sound than most people.
Yeah, it's what I do. So I tell my students, I teach music technology for 2 universities here in town. And I tell my students, think about this. If you've got a computer or an iPad or an iPhone or whatever you want to use, and you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 programs running, that machine's going to run kind of slow. If you close all those programs and just have one program running, that program's going to run pretty fast and be very efficient. And that's how it is with me. I can't see, I can't smell, and I can touch my instrument and stuff like that, but you can't touch sound, right? So when I'm sitting here, I'm not touching the air or touching, I'm mainly just listening. So I'm just processing the information at a very, very high rate because the other senses are not being used. So I've got more bandwidth is the way I think about it. I've got more processing power to use my ears.
Yeah.
And that's the trick.
So in your bio, it says that you have gone through a lot of stages of different types of involvement with music, including writing, and you learned to play guitar from pretty early on, right? And producing, and you learned about the technology and about the sound engineering and all these different things. What was the sequence of that?
So I became obsessed with the radio show, started recording sounds, and then I got a job when I was 15 years old. My first job was a sound technician at the local planetarium. And all the other kids that worked there were 18, 20 years old, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they said, hey, we understand you've got some recording equipment at your house. We're in a garage band. Can we come record with you? I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Let's do it. That'll be fun. So I started that. And then I'd done 3 or 4 garage bands, kids that were in bands and done some recording. And the word got around and said, hey, this stuff sounds pretty good. And at that point, I wasn't even charging anything. I was just doing it for fun. And I had a little attic room in my home where, I was living with my folks and where I was recording. And then I heard a band come in, and they recorded a song that they'd written. Most of these bands were recording, cover songs that other people had written. They were playing those. Yeah. But these guys came in and played something they wrote. And I said, man, I love that song. Who wrote that? They're like, oh, we wrote that. And another light bulb went off in my head. And I said, man, music is the vehicle through which I'm going to share my story. This is it. This is it. This is it. This is the thing. And I'm going to share what I learned and how I got there and the trials, the tribulations, the triumphs. I'm going to share all that through music, in part because I need to express that because it's part of my spirit. And creating music for me is a compulsion. It's something I have to do. It's what I was meant to do. I firmly believe that. But also because by sharing my experiences, the hope is that it will inspire someone else to take that leap of faith that they need to follow whatever their passion is. And so I want to tell stories so that people don't fall into the trap of thinking that they're alone. For some reason, it's sort of baked into the human condition that we can't understand what, somebody else is going through. So people think, no, you'll never understand what I've gone through. You can't know my story. Well, I certainly can't know your story if you don't share it. But some people don't have the tools to do that. What they need, though, is to have that moment of catharsis, that moment of release, that moment of connection when they listen to the radio and they go, my God, that person is singing my life. They're singing my story. And in that moment, they realize that we're all really connected in a very profound way. So that's kind of how the obsession took hold. And I've been making music ever since. I knew that I wanted to play guitar, but I wanted to get educated, so I went to school for it. You know, I studied and practiced and worked hard and just dedicated myself to that pursuit. And I've never had another job. I've always made music since I was able to start working. This is what I've done.
You learned guitar first, and then how long after that did you start writing?
I had started writing. I dabbled with piano just by ear. Mm-hmm. Just picking out the notes. I wasn't particularly good at it. I even now that I've gone to school for music, I would say that I'm a low side of adequate keyboard player. Okay. And it's kind of funny because being blind, everybody thinks I play piano because of Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles and stuff like that. And they say, "Hey, will you come play piano?" I was like, "No, you don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that." But I started writing in earnest, I mean, pretty much immediately. Even when my skill set was really limited, I was still composing. Now, it wasn't good, but I was still trying to express myself. By the time I was 20, I was working on my first album seriously and actually, doing it. And, the first record's always a growing pain. It was difficult to make. A lot of people didn't understand my vision for it. And I had to learn to be okay with that. Well, right or wrong, I'm not saying I'm always right. I am saying that it's my record. We're going to do it my way. And that doesn't mean that I'm always right. I'm glad to take responsibility when I'm wrong.
And now it's all songs that you wrote, right? Yeah, they're
all out of my brain, out of my heart, out of my soul. Mm-hmm. And I had to express them a certain way. And the first record, I'll be honest, when I can admit when I'm wrong. The first record, I was way too controlling. I was way too nitpicky about stuff. I was just wanted it to be so perfect, which is an illusion. You cannot. That's a dragon you shouldn't chase. You should seek for perfection in the expression. In that, and what I mean by that is, does the song communicate? Does it evoke the emotions, the imagery, the contact with other beings that you wanted? Is it technically perfect? Well, ideally, that would be nice. But, you can perfect the soul right out of something. So you have to learn when it's good enough, even if it's not what you consider perfect. And that's tough. That's a tough lesson. So that first record was real tumultuous because I was so obsessed. It was so important. And I thought, I'm going to get it perfect. I'm going to get it perfect. I'm going to get it perfect. And eventually what I had to do was I got it as perfect as I was able to get it at the moment. Now I could go back and play some of those songs 10 times better. Mm-hmm. But, that's why you come to the live show.
Right. Yeah. So was that you on guitar singing?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I play all the guitars. I do all the vocals. Sometimes I play bass as well. Sometimes I play keyboard if it's something simple. If it's something fancy, I get someone who's a good keyboard player. I also, in pre-production, I will sometimes even play the drum parts, and then just to have something to lay the track down to, and then I'll get a real awesome drummer to come in and replace my parts. Okay. So I'm low side adequate drummer as well. It's not terrible, but it's also not amazing. I think part of it is knowing when you need somebody else to do the job. But my first band, my bandmates, there were 4 guitar players and a drummer, and that's way too many guitar players. And we were all just sort of strumming the same chords, and so I say my first band. It wasn't my first band, but it was the first band I was in. And I said, look, guys, this is just a wall of sound, but there's no distinction. There's no, we need to play parts. Like, you need to play this bit, and I need to play this bit, and then these things will complement each other. So eventually what I did, the guys weren't really able to pick the parts out for themselves. So I said, well, I'll learn all the parts and then I'll teach them to you. Yeah, and that's how the producer in me was born, is that I had to learn all the parts and say, well, you play this and you play that and you play this and I'll play this. And then now we've got, 4 guitar players, but we're all playing something a little different that complements the other guy.
Yeah. And how did that step into putting a studio together?
Yeah, so basically I kept collecting gear. Every time I had a little money, I'd buy something better. I eventually moved out of my home into a building in downtown Macon, Georgia, where I'm proud to serve as the music ambassador here, the official music ambassador. And because I love my hometown, I love talking about all the great music that comes from this area. Yeah. I just kept doing it, and finally built something that was really of a competitive nature and a commercial recording studio. And sometimes I just push the buttons and do the tech stuff as an engineer. Sometimes I'm the producer, which means that I handle the musical things. I say, hey, your kick drum pattern isn't working with the bass guitar line. We need to change that. Or, this song really needs a violin. Let's find a violin player. Or, hey, I think that's a pretty good vocal take, but I think you can do better. I think you got a better one in you. Let's try that again. And a lot of what I do as a producer actually is like psychology, because it's making the artist feel happy, comfortable, and productive. Because if they're not happy and comfortable and having a good time, then we can't get any work done. You got to be in the right mental frame of mind to get a good record. So that's a lot of what I do is kind of act as a cheerleader. But I don't try to make someone sound like something they're not. I just try to bring out the best version of them that I can. I want them to sound like them. I don't think every female vocalist needs to sound like Kelly Clarkson. We got one of her. She's amazing. Yeah. But we don't need another one. Let's do you. So I think will we all sell out 80,000 seat arenas? No. But we can all have vibrant, exciting, and meaningful careers with people that love what we do.
So now, if somebody wants to play music and they're in a band, or they want to be in a band and they want to have a career that way, is there any way to do it at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. The great thing about music is it's never too late. Now, I'm not going to lie. If you're young and attractive, that's going to help you out.
Sure. Right.
It just is.
So just make sure you stay that way indefinitely, right?
Just stay that way indefinitely, whatever you have to do, formaldehyde, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, the thing is, music is this beautiful language that has no boundaries. And it doesn't matter, if let me put it this way, if you like it, somebody else will like it. Does that mean that you will have a million bestseller? That's a real hard proposition. You might be the one. So just like the Red Sox used to say before they won the World Series back in 2004, I think it was, they hadn't won for a long time. Their slogan was, why not us? Why not us? So Why not you? But just go into it with the realistic expectation that you may be blessed. You may be in the right place at the right time and do all the right things and just have this hit that just gels. But you may not. And you got to be okay with that. But you should do it because you love it. And if you do that, everything else is going to fall into place. I like to talk about success, what a successful life is. And I talk about that as a blind brain tumor survivor. And one of my 4 pillars of what I consider success, the first pillar, and arguably perhaps the most important, is intention. Once you have a goal, once you have an intention, every decision you make from that point on is going to further that purpose. If you don't have a goal or an intention, what you're going to find is that you're reacting to life instead of setting a path through life. And if you're constantly reacting, you're going to make more mistakes. That's what I believe. So I think if you've got a burning desire to play music, you should do it because you love it. And if nobody else loves it, that's okay. But I'm here to tell you that somebody else will love it. Now, you may have to work hard to find that audience, but somebody's going to enjoy that music, and not just your mama. And that's not to say that you shouldn't work hard at it. I'm not saying you can just pick up the guitar and the next, I think the problem is, the myth is that today I've written a song, tomorrow I'll be a star. Yeah. And people talk about overnight sensations, right? And so, and I tell my kids, that guy was an overnight sensation, 20 years in the making. he was out there, or she was out there playing and performing and working on their craft forever. You just didn't know them. And then all of a sudden, all those steps they took finally coalesced into a moment where everything fell into place and all the hard work paid off, and now, boom.
Right.
So it can happen. But if you want to be in the music business, the reason you should get in it is because you love it and you're not complete without it. And if you have that mental aspect, that mental attitude, you will be able to survive all the slings and arrows that will be thrown at you, because it is a crazy business, man. It's full of a lot of people that are very self-deluded. It's full of people that are shysters and crooks. It's full of people that will promise you the moon and not deliver. But it's also full of a lot of amazing, talented, beautiful, wonderful people that your life will be enriched to know. So It's all worth it in the end, but it ain't easy. I mean,
so how many different capacities are you working in now? How's your time split up? Are you mostly with recording or teaching,
the recording business really, as we were talking about earlier, the recording business this year was really bad. The touring business is non-existent.
Yeah, exactly.
People can do live stream stuff on Facebook and stuff like that, but it's really hard to get people to pay for that. Mm-hmm. It's even hard to get people that, people's attention spans are virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get someone even to click a button and give you a tip, like a tip jar. Because typically when they're on social media, they're also doing a bunch of other stuff, kind of at the same time.
Yeah. So
that the touring part, where a lot of the money is made in this form of the music business, that is basically gone. Right. But things are starting up again, and I am now starting to see the recording business pick up. People are saying, well, if I'm not touring, if I'm not having to do all the things I used to do to make a living, I might as well be productive in some way. And so they're getting back into making more music than they've ever made before. So for some people, it's been actually a really productive time. But for me, my primary living comes from the production side of things. Even though I'm a recording artist and all that stuff, and I tour and all that, my primary income comes from the studio side. So, that's been a little bit low lately. But, you just do the best you can and try to find new ways of finding revenue. And the biggest thing that I do is I'm always trying to improve myself in some way.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest things that I do is I was like, okay, right now is not the time to spend money on buying new microphones or new equipment. Let's cut the spending back because the revenue's down. Let's just sort of focus on what we do. And so that's kind of how I've just been sort of hunkering down, but I've been writing a lot, which is good. So okay. I'm happy about that.
What's the typical kind of customer when there's enough customers around who wants to hire your studio?
It splits. It's probably about 50% professionals that make a living at it.
Meaning bands that want to record a record, or
bands or artists.
Okay.
Bands or solo artists. Yeah. So it's about 50% that. It's probably about 30% hobbyists, people that don't make a living at it, but they either offset their income with it or they do it as a hobby. Okay. And then it's about 20% other stuff, like voiceovers for commercials. I've done commercials for like Chase Bank and the Georgia Lottery and stuff like that. So voiceovers, audiobooks, just, on hold music, just like a hodgepodge of other stuff.
Okay. So that customer profile of those different types of customers should kind of explain why you've got different pieces of equipment in your studio right now.
Absolutely. So there's lots of different things. And I'm going to give you a studio tour so you can see the creative space.
That would be really great. Yeah.
Yeah, but before I do that, if you would like, I was going to take you real quick through the creative process.
Yeah, when you're creating a song from scratch, that would be really good. Yeah.
So basically, I've got pulled up on my board here. I've got my song, Ain't It Good to Be in Love. And what I want to show you is how the idea started.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to play.
This should be, for people that are not familiar with all this stuff, but are just wondering, if I wanted to write a song, what are the steps?
Exactly. So here's how this came about. And now let's keep in mind that I'm giving you a Cliff Notes version here.
Right.
This would normally take weeks or months to put all this together.
It would be a course, right?
Yeah, but we're going to do it super fast.
Okay.
But the first thing that happened, Richard, was this idea of a guitar part. So I'm going to play this guitar part for you first. So we're just going to hear the guitar part for a second.
Yeah.
So here's just the. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's just the guitar part. I'm going to let you hear that for a second.
And this is a song you're talking about for one guitar and one singer, right?
Well, this song, actually, you're going to hear a bunch of parts that are going to be put on top of it.
Okay, so the reason I asked that is when you say, here's the guitar part, is this like a rhythm guitar or lead guitar?
This is a rhythm guitar part, and eventually when we're done in the next 10 minutes or so, you will have heard about 20 instruments be put on top of this guitar.
Okay, good.
So the first thing I'm going to let you hear is just the inspiration of the guitar. So this is the first thing that we came up with that generated everything else. This was co-written. This song was co-written by a dear friend of mine, Charlie Hoskins, who was in a band called The Popes from the UK. And he and I met in 2015 when I was on tour in the UK, and I was speaking at the University College of London. And I was doing a couple gigs around town. And just to show how fate works, a friend of a friend was supposed to come see me play. That friend couldn't make it, so that friend asked their cousin to come see me play. Mm-hmm. And this person, their cousin Charlie, became one of my dearest friends. And we started writing music together. And I don't write music with just anybody. So I have to love and respect them enough to go through the process of writing with them, because it's a very personal process.
Right.
And so Charlie met me. We became instant friends. We started writing together. So Charlie came up with, he passed away, by the way, in 2017, very unexpectedly. And I am thrilled to be able to keep his music alive by working on some of the songs we did together. It means more to me than I can say.
So this first part is chords and rhythm, basically.
That's right. So here's the first idea that he came up with, and then I started building on top of it. So here's just the guitar.
Got it.
Now, I'm going to stop right there because you can hear that's just a little chord there. It's a riff and just a little chord play.
Right.
Now, that's not a lot to work with. But that chord, the rhythm is bum, 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 ba-da, bum, 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 bum. So if you keep that in mind, watch how much more interesting it becomes when I add a drum part that complements that chord. So here's just the drums and the guitar. So now you're seeing I'm really capturing the ba 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 that the guitar had.
Right. And are the two instruments actually playing at the same time, or do you record one at a time and then
we tracked it all at the same time? That's a great question. So yeah, we're playing live together, but well, not all of it. The core guitar, bass, drums are all playing live together, but I have everybody in different rooms so I can isolate each sound.
And they're wearing headphones so they don't feel like they're isolated.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
And that is really important, to the musicians have to be able to hear each other. If we can work it out where we have them isolated, but they can still see each other, then we work it out that way. That becomes a little trickier. I, of course, don't need that. It doesn't matter to me. So when sighted people are like, oh, I need to be able to see the drummer, I'm like, do you really? Do you really need to be able to see him? But anyway, we're all thinking about it. And I craft each one of these parts very specifically and say, here are the things that I want to do with the drums to make this more exciting. Here are the things I want to do with the guitar. So now that we've heard that basic idea and we see how it's grown, let me show you what happens when I bring the bass guitar in. You're going to see how now the bass guitar is filling up another place. You'll be able to see how it's really becoming more and more and more. So now you start to get a more full picture. What's going to really inform, we've got a rhythm track going now that makes sense, but what's really going to inform things now is when I bring the vocal in, the lead vocal.
Yeah.
And you'll see how the lyrics and the melody complement this groove. Once I do that, you have a basic song. So the way I write, and this is a little different, every writer is a little different, but the way I write is I imagine the guitar, the bass, the drums, and the vocals all at the same time. They all come to me as a package in my mind.
Okay.
And then once I have that basic idea, in this case, though, the whole song started off with that little guitar line that Charlie came up with. And then from there, we added to that. But
let me make sure I understand what you just said, too. Did you say that the instrumental accompaniment and the vocal come to you at the same time?
Yes.
So
they all come.
Because a lot of people ask singer-songwriters, do you write the words first or the music first? And you're saying you get them both at the same time.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's just how I'm
unusual.
wired.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. A lot of people. Charlie, for example, didn't write lyrics, and he didn't really write melodies. He wrote like music first, and so he would he wrote a little guitar idea that I played for you, and he sent it to me, and I immediately go, bam! I got the lyrics, I got the melody, I got the drum part all in my head, and they all popped into being at the same time, and that's why I like to write when I have time to be inspired. I don't have to be in a certain mood to write because I've worked a long time to do this, and I know how to be productive even when I'm not feeling particularly inspired. I can still slog through it and kind of get the work done, like the technical details. But I like to have time. Like I say, okay, I'm going to write something today. And I sit down and I know, okay, I've got 45 minutes that I can sit here and work on this.
Yeah.
And I like to do that. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have little ideas that pop up throughout the day. I do. And I'll very quickly notate them. I actually use my phone. I just record, here's an idea I had, and I just sing into it, and I go, here are the chords, and I just put a little fragment down. I label it with some kind of label that makes sense to me and my brain, and I go back and visit it later. I remember that song I wrote about Christmas. Let me go back. It's getting near Christmas time. Let me go back and think about that song.
When you're saying that the words and the accompaniment and everything come to you all at once,
Mm-hmm.
is it what you mean? Is it just the beginning of all that, or do you see all the verses like almost right away?
So usually I'll have a melody, the chords for that melody, so the instrumental part, and the lyric for at least a verse and a chorus.
Okay, that's a lot.
And here's how it works. I'll have something on my mind, or I'll have something on my heart, and I'll let that simmer in the back of my brain without conscious thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ponder it while I'm in the shower, or when I can't drive. So when I'm in the car, I'm just sitting there writing. So the very few moments of my day when I'm not doing something, I'm almost meditating. I'm just sort of letting my consciousness drift, and I just sort of think about things, and think about whatever's on my mind or my heart. And then when I sit down, I already have a nugget of a concept there. Mm-hmm. And then it just all sort of unfolds. If I sit down and give myself time, it all just sort of comes. So once I get that first verse and that first chorus, those are the hardest ones, but they come to me, pretty quickly. And then after that, everything else unfolds pretty fast. Sometimes I'll come back after a couple days and I'll use my intellect versus my emotion or my spirit to refine it and go, that little part there really doesn't advance the plot. We can cut that. Or, you know what? I need a little something extra in the middle of the song to make it more interesting. Let me do something like that. But primarily, I go on inspiration.
Yeah. And it sounds like your inspiration is more focused in a certain way than somebody who's distracted by sight. Because
that's true. Because,
you're totally focused on sound and what goes into it.
Well, the thing about me, Richard, is this. Most of my existence is conceptual, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I am not nailed down to the sky is blue, the sun is yellow, the grass is green. I'm not nailed down to those concepts. They don't really mean anything to me. So my understanding of things is more conceptual in nature.
Are you visualizing it internally when you conceive it?
Not like you would. In other words, I visualize it the way that let me change that. I experience it. Is it
more a feeling?
Yeah, it's more a mental construct.
Okay.
It's more like this. It's more like I know what grass feels like under my feet.
Right.
So when I think of grass, that's what I think of. But what it means is instead of being nailed down to a concrete visual concept of something, mm-hmm. I am able to translate all those concepts into symbols. In other words, they're just assigned values. So I don't think like as concrete as some people think.
What kind of symbols are you talking about?
So what I'm saying is, like, for me, the grass evokes a emotional response. I think about summertime when I think about grass. I think about how it feels to walk through grass barefoot. Right. I think about what being outside during the summer means. For me as a kid, outside in the summer meant that I was feeling pretty good, that I was healthy, that I was enjoying my life. So it's more of a story and a feeling that I associate than any sort of concrete physicality. Does that make sense?
It works out perfectly because the feeling is the whole thing you're trying to put in music.
Exactly.
The music is not all about visual graphics.
Right.
It's how you're going to make somebody feel, right?
And unfortunately, in the music production business, because everything's so computer-based, we have gotten to a place where people are relying on all the lights and all the graphs and all the meters. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, and I'm not saying they're not helpful, because they are. And I wish I could see them. But it does sometimes I remind my students, stop looking at the meters, stop looking at the graphs, right. Close your eyes, tell me what you hear. Well,
and if you have a great musical artist performing, they don't suffer from turning the lights off.
Right. And, actually, that's
in fact, it could get better.
Listen, it does, because every room in my studio has a dimmer for the lights. so that the artists can get the kind of atmosphere they need to be creative. Because it doesn't matter to me. I don't have to see them.
Well, right. I'm just realizing that the whole projection of feeling, it doesn't depend on light at all.
No,
actually,
no. It's all in this art form. It's all sonic.
Yeah.
Now obviously, if you're a painter, that would be a different thing.
Well, that's a different focus. Maybe they'd benefit if they were deaf.
Yeah.
But
I mean, anytime you can go to that zone, like tennis players say they're in the zone, right? When they're really playing well. Anytime you can move to that meditative state where you're really focused and nothing else is distracting you, you're going to be more creative and you're going to be able to get better results, I think.
Yeah. The injection of the feeling that you're focused on into the technical sound that
exactly
it needs is the combination.
And that's why as an artist, you really need someone like me, like a producer, that can worry about all the technical stuff, so you don't have to think about it and you can just create.
Exactly.
That way, I take all that off your shoulders so you can be creative. Let me worry about the microphone and where it's going to be and all that nonsense.
And you can give the feedback that's suggesting how they need to change to make it
exactly.
better. Yeah,
and so to share with you, here's what happens when we bring the vocal into this mix. Let me just unmute that. And I'll let you hear it now. And then things are going to happen pretty fast. So hang on one second.
All right.
So once again, I'm starting from the same place so that we have a sense of how things have evolved as I add these parts.
Right.
So here's the beginning. And then the vocal comes in.
We're crazy when we are together. Her smile brings sunny weather. There ain't nothing we can't figure out. When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la.
So that is the verse, the pre-chorus, and the chorus. And now all the drums and the bass and the guitar are really starting to make sense because you see how they lay with that vocal.
And so in some cases, you'd be adding keyboard and backup singers and
that is what we're doing next.
Okay.
You got it. You got it. So the keyboard is real subtle. It's not real loud. It is there just to add a little color. I'm going to start you a little bit into the song, and you'll hear the keyboard kind of start. We're not going to take it all the way from the top.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, hang on. If you hear voices in the background, that's my computer talking to me.
Okay.
It reads what's on the screen. Okay, so here we are, and we're bringing the keyboard in a little bit just to add a little flavor, just in little spots.
When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la.
So I'm going to do the same passage, but this time we're just going to hear the keyboard and the vocal, just so you can really hear what that keyboard's doing. It's really just adding a little flavor. So we're going to just do the vocal and the keyboard part and let you hear that just for a second.
When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la.
So right there, the keyboard's just adding a little texture. It's not real important to the overall song, as far as it's more something you're going to miss if it's not there. Mm-hmm. It's not something that really makes a huge difference. But listen what happens when I bring these backup vocals in, now in the same spot. So now we're going to start layering the backup vocals. And again, we developed this arrangement over time. I would sit and think about it and go, yeah, what we need is X, Y, Z. We started off with just guitar, bass, drum, and lead vocal. And then I said, yeah, we need a little keyboard. And I said, well, we need a little backup vocal. And we'll see how this progresses. So
in real life experience, would you be bringing in studio musicians to fill in those parts?
Well, my band we're all session players. So yeah. So we are all the guys that played in this instance. This is my band. But I make a living as a studio musician on guitar and bass, and as an arranger. So, but yes, we can bring it. If your band doesn't play all the requisite instruments, we can bring that in. And you're going to hear that in just a moment. I got a big surprise for you coming up in just a second.
Okay.
Check out this is just me and my bass player doing the backup vocals. But in a second, it gets really cool. I'm really excited. And we're almost through with this stuff, this thing. There's two more elements after this one, and you'll see how different it sounds from where we started.
When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la.
So again, we're just adding textures here, adding a little backup vocal. Okay, I was pretty happy with the song at this point. But then we said, you know what would make this song really hit you in the heart is a children's choir. And my bass player was a choral director at a local middle school. So we brought in his 30-piece or 30-voice children's choir to come sing. And they were here for about 2 hours, and they were brilliant. And I just used, for those of you that are interested in the technical side, I just used 2 microphones, got them all up on their risers, and we had a blast. Now, it was impossible to fit all of them with headphones. So he conducted them. He had a pair of headphones, my bass player. He conducted them like he would normally do it in the choir room. And we also had a speaker that was positioned in a way where it wouldn't bleed into the microphones. It wouldn't, get into the microphones. And it played the lead vocal and the piano. So they had a reference. And then we blended it all in. And you're going to be amazed at these kids. I mean, they were incredible. But when you hear it with these kids, it all just changes. It becomes much more than it was before. So I'm going to start roughly the same place and let you hear that.
Okay.
Smile, bring sunny weather. There ain't nothing we can't figure out. When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love?
And let's just play that one more time with just the vocals so you can hear how amazing these kids are.
Her smile brings sunny weather. There ain't nothing we can't figure out. When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la.
So,
Yeah, they're really
as you
good.
can see, that's a big difference.
Right.
And here is, I thought I was done. I'm done. This is great. I'm happy. But then I wanted one last thing. I wanted horns. And I wanted to give us a full horn section. So two trumpets, 2 trombones. And I wanted to do that old school Memphis Stax, Sun Studio, horn section that was on so many hits in the 60s. And I brought in a friend to do that. And he just did an incredible job. And so I'm just going to play for you this next little bit. Now you're hearing it with everything in. So the horns are now our last element.
Now, how did one friend that you brought in do a horn section?
Well, that's an excellent question. So I brought in one friend, and he brought in a friend of his. So there was a trombone player and a trumpet player. What they did was they played all the parts so it sounded like a full brass orchestra.
And then stacked them back on top of each other.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So 2 actual people.
2 actual people made all these horns.
Got it. Okay.
And I'll let you hear those real quick. We're going to start roughly the same place just so you can see how it changes.
Her smile brings sunny weather. There ain't nothing we can't figure out. When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love?
So that is a rough mix. It's not by any means the final version that went out, but that's a rough mix showing all the different elements that went into making this song. And it went over a period of weeks. We recorded the first part. First we had to write it, then we recorded it. And the first recording was just guitar, bass, drums, and lead vocal. Then we added keyboard and the backing vocal that my bass player and I did.
Yeah.
Then we said, oh my gosh, what if some kids were singing about love? What if kids were talking about, how great it is to be in love and singing that, how sweet they did that. And then we said, okay, now we need a little bit more of something a little bit funky, something that give you that party feeling and give you a lift, a joyful lift. And I thought, man, nothing better than a great horn section to make you feel like you want to dance, like you want to sing. So we brought that in, and then that was the creative process. And it happened over, weeks and many, many, many hours of working with different processes. But that's kind of a sneak peek into what goes on. Your average recording artist, pick whoever you like, whether it's Snoop Dogg, Neil Diamond, Ella Fitzgerald, Metallica, these artists spend 200 and 300 hours in the studio for the album that you end up buying. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of time and effort. And that does not include the rehearsal time. That does not include the songwriting time, just the technical part of doing all these things.
So when there's so much involved, it's amazing that anybody can get a good approximation of that, or even better, doing a live, spontaneous performance,
Absolutely.
Right?
That's true. And what's really interesting is I find that my live show comes up a notch once I go through the painful process of recording the song.
Okay, right.
Because this way it sets it in a concrete form that you can build on.
Right.
And now I'm a little different. I play to my strengths. So I have two really good strengths. One of my strengths, I have a good memory. And the other strength is I'm really good at being creative in the moment. Mm-hmm. So I like the challenge of going out on stage night after night after night. And every night it's a little different. Right, so if you came to see me Friday night and you come see me Saturday night, you're going to have a different experience. There will be some things that are the same, and the basic form will be the same, but I will go off on tangents, and I have visual cues, which I find kind of funny, that I give my band, hey guys, I'm getting ready to go off into a new direction. Just keep doing what you're doing and pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Right, so I'll go off into a tangent and start playing all kind of stuff that wasn't written. I'll start being spontaneously creative, but they know how to watch me, and I give them cues with the neck of my guitar or my body language, or I'll use my right hand. So I have a cutoff gesture, like, we're done. That's probably went out of shot. But
so anyway, once you go through all those recording steps, what would happen to that song?
So next we'd finish mixing it. That was just a rough mix. So we'd fully mix it, balance everything out. Then we'd master it. And then once that happens, the mastering is a different process that's really a lot of people don't understand very well. But it's more complicated than this. But essentially what you'll notice is that the lows will be a little lower. The highs will be a little crisper. The volume will be a little bit louder. My mix, when I send it to a mastering engineer, like our good friend Doug Diamond, my mix will be usually about anywhere from 3 to 6 dB below zero, so that he has room to work to do his magic. So I don't make the music as loud as I possibly can. That's a
dB. You're talking about volume, right?
Yes, dB is decibel, and that's volume. Yeah, so I don't make the music as loud as I possibly can. At this stage, I let the mastering engineer do that because you're getting a better tonality from not having the music super loud at this stage, in my opinion. So we give, and if you listen to records from the 80s and then you listen to records from the 2000s, the records from the 80s, some of them sound very dated, don't get me wrong, but a lot of ways you'll hear that there's a lot of very rich musical things happening that sort of got lost in the early 2000s because we had something called the loudness wars, where people just said, we can make it super loud, so let's just do that. Right. There was no real reason to do it per se. It was just that they're like, oh, we can, and they did, and things started sounding very compressed and very just sort of squished, and not have a lot of dynamic, not have a lot of tone.
Right.
We've fortunately gotten away from that now. So the role of the mastering engineer is really more important than ever. But people finally got back to letting the studios do the mix at a reasonable volume, and then let the mastering engineer bring things up to industry standard level volume. Yeah. It's a much more complicated than that. But that's kind of the basic, that's a quick and dirty idea about mastering. Right. But then what you would do is now you're ready for distribution. So how do you get the music to the fan? And that is the next sort of step.
That's what's changed over the decades, right?
Yeah, that is the trick.
I mean, I remember going into the vinyl record stores a long time ago, and they had phonographs set up in the middle of the aisle, and you could take a record and listen to it.
Yes.
They had headphones, and see if you wanted to buy it.
And I miss going to the record store, because the people that worked there listened to music all day long, and you could go in and they knew you, right? They said, "Oh, hey, Joey, so and so just came in. I think you'll like this."
Right.
And they could recommend things that you hadn't heard of. It was a wonderful experience. As a child, that was one of my favorite memories, was going to the record store. Once a week, if I was feeling good and my health would allow it, my parents would take me to the record store, and I'd go spend, I don't know, $20 or something. And that was my allowance. And I'd go in there, man, and I'd spend an hour and a half just listening and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
It was a lot of fun. I miss that. You don't see that much anymore. There's still a few, like you got Newberry Comics and some other, you still got some chains where you can do that, but there's not many.
Yeah. So distribution now is mostly electronic, right?
Correct. And the physical distribution, unless you're a major label artist like Adele or somebody like that, physical distribution primarily happens through live shows, which is why the live music being down right now is such a sort of crippling blow to those of us that make their living, selling their art. Right.
Before I forget too, I assume, what would you call the room that you're in right now in the studio?
Yeah. So, and this room is the control room. So This is the heart of the studio. Everything comes into this point from all the other rooms. And this is where
this piece of equipment that you're sitting in front of.
This is some people call it a desk. Some people call it a mixing board. I call it a console. So this is my mixing console. And I don't know if you can see, but all these channels over here, each one of these is a different instrument.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious question is, why does it have to be 8 feet long or whatever? I mean, those buttons are not just painted on. I mean, they actually do things. So basically, each one of these channels has a set of controls on it, and they're replicated all the way down the board. There's 48 of them on the bottom, and then there's a second row up here on the top, and there's 48 on the top. And so they have a set of controls. So each one of these would control a microphone, and that microphone might be sometimes, like on the drum set, for example, I'll have anywhere from 4 to 12 microphones on just the drums. Wow.
So that's why you have to have so many channels.
So you're making really fine adjustments on how you want the sound to come out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Minute adjustments. And like I said, right now, what I just played you, normally I kind of cheated and kind of blended a bunch of stuff together. But normally I would have, from this side of from the far left to about midline would just be drums. Just tweaking drums. What I played right now is something called a stem, which is all the drum parts kind of summed together. But normally I have control of, so right now I can just raise and lower the volume. And so normally I would have every instrument would have its own channel. It would be from the left of the console all the way to the right. And we would have that in the recording process so that we capture the live performance, right? Each one of these microphones, each one of these channels, we capture the live performance, but then I'd also have that same control in the mixing process where I actually blend everything together. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's super technical to go into, but you can take out low frequencies, you can add high frequencies, and I have gear that surrounds me all over here that does all kinds of different things. It changes tone, that changes dynamics, so it makes something louder a little softer, makes something softer a little louder. All kinds of equipment that most guys will mix on a song for 10 to 12 hours. And the big boys.
Right.
Sometimes the small guys don't have that kind of time. But if you'd like, I could show you around this space a little bit more.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And then show you the other rooms so you can get a feel for the creative spaces we have.
Yeah, because all we know right now is the space you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So this device right here, let's turn it on. This is a version of something called an LA2A, and it controls dynamics. So basically, if you've got a sound that goes from loud to soft, sometimes that can be problematic. You want the sound to be more even throughout the recording. And so this device helps control those dynamics. Now, I've got several devices that do kind of the same thing. They control dynamics. But because they're different makes of that device, and they have different components, they have different tubes, different types of wiring, copper versus silver, different kind of capacitors, the tone they create is different. So for a more mellow tone, I might use this version of my LA2A. If we drop down here, here's another. Let me see if I can find the switch to turn the thing on. I think it's way over here. I was going to make the pretty lights come on, but I can't find it.
It's in the middle on the bottom.
Oh, there we go. Did that turn on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is a little bit more bright. This is a little bit more aggressive. So it's not quite as smooth to me. It's a little bit more aggressive, and it depends on what we're doing as to which one I want. And here's another, down here at the bottom, there's another one that does much the same thing, but has a different kind of vibe. So I work to get different kinds of vibe. We talk about adding, in your car stereo, you can add more bass or more treble. Well, we can do that for every single instrument at a very high level. So here's two processors right here that do that. These are my SSL alpha strips, and they do that. They add all the bass and the treble and the mids, and I can assign those to whatever instrument I want. So as you take a look, here's this whole, let's back up and show the whole rack. There's a whole bunch of those dynamics controls, EQ, all in this rack. Now we'll go to the middle rack.
This is like for processing the recording after it's finished from that first version, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Every in a while, Richard, I will process as we're recording, but I don't do it very often because I like to give myself more flexibility later on.
Okay.
I don't want to get stuck with something and not like it later.
Right.
And
right.
how it works is if you record guitar, bass, drums, and then somebody in the band says, "Hey, it'd be great is if we had an accordion on this song." Now all the choices I made before when I thought it was going to be just guitar, bass, drums, I'm stuck with those choices, and we've added a new element that may not work exactly as I had intended to begin with, so I have to make a lot of changes. So I like to give myself room to change my mind later on. So if we finish, also need to show you one more rack. Here's this final rack. And again, this is all processing equipment for after the mix. You can see a whole bunch of it over there.
Okay.
And that's just one side. Let me show you over here where the keyboards are. We'll just spin around.
Yeah.
Looks like if you wanted to change to a simpler career, you'd go into flying a 747 or something. This
well,
really
they say that autopilot does a lot of the work these days.
Yeah, you don't get those for sound processing, I guess.
You don't. So right here, I have all my keyboards, and they all have different attributes. For example, this one right here at the bottom, the keys are weighted so they feel more like a grand piano, like a real piano. And that's kind of important if you're a real piano player. This next one up the next level, the keys are real mushy, and they're not as weighted. So that's kind of important. They also sound very differently. And then up here at the top, we have two smaller ones that also have a lot of different sounds. So I combined them to get all kinds of different sounds, from organs to horn samples to synthesizers. They're all on these keyboards over here.
Okay.
And then let me take you to the tracking room. So we're going to take a quick walk down the hall. Now over here, this room is my main tracking room. And this is where I'll have a lot of the musicians stand to be recorded. I try not to have the drums and the rest of the band in the same room, but sometimes the artists really want that. They want to be able to be in the same space. Mm-hmm. So if we have to, we can. But again, I try to give each instrument its own room. You can see this room's, fairly good size, about the size of a sort of average living room, I'd say. And on the wall are these foam baffles that we created, and they help keep the sound from bouncing around too much. Now, you can look at if you want, you can look at the floor and see that I have hardwood floors in here because I like the way the sound bounces on the floor, but I don't like the way the sound bounces on the wall. So I've taken steps to minimize that.
Okay.
So this is where a lot of people will be. Right now, there's really not much in here. There's an amp sitting around and some other stuff. But this is where we'd stick the horn section, for example, would be in this room. And
here's the window to the control room.
And here's the window. You can see another view of the control room. Here you can see this is where I would be sitting. People would be able to see me. Of course, I wouldn't be able to see them, but that's their loss.
Okay. Right.
And then back here, let me show you my favorite space. So now you see my drum set. This is my drum room. And as you can see, every drum has a microphone. Right here over the hi-hat, these two cymbals that come together with the pedal. There's a microphone here. There's a microphone on this snare drum here. I've got a mic on it. Each one of these drums at the top, these are called toms. Each one of them has a drum mic. I've got 5 of those. And then up here near the ceiling, I capture the whole drum kit with 2 mics left and right. And of course, you can see they'll also capture not only the whole drum kit, but all these cymbals. And then here in the front, we have mics on this big drum here, the kick drum. So I've got 2 mics, one on the outside that picks up sub-frequencies, the really low stuff, and then one on the inside that picks up more of the attack. And then sometimes I'll put a mic. Is there one over here? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sometimes I'll put a mic in the corner of the room, so I'm just picking up really the boominess, the echo of the room. So I'm kind of creating natural reverb like you have in your shower when you sing at home. Yeah. Everybody says, when they sing in the shower. So the reason is you got reverb. So I'm picking up that natural sound of the room and not so much the sound of the drums. I've already got all these close mics for that. Then I've got this one mic here in the corner that kind of takes care of letting me hear the whole room.
Got it.
And we got 2 last stops. This is my vocal booth, and I've got my classic Neumann U87 here, one of the greatest vocal mics in the world. It can also be used on horns and stuff like that, but it is a really wonderful vocal mic. It's sort of the quintessential great studio mic. And this small space, as you can see, all the walls are covered with that sound insulation foam. So it's really very quiet in here. There's not much room tone. There's no reflection. It's a very quiet space. So it works really great for vocals. It works really great for narration if you're doing an audiobook or a voiceover. Mm-hmm. I've done acoustic guitars in here too. But normally with my instruments, I like to have a little bit more of the room sound as part of the recording. But with vocals, I tend to like to have a little bit more quiet because then I can really fool with the vocals and affect them in all kinds of different ways. And it doesn't affect anything else. So this is my sort of my quiet room.
Nice.
And then
headphones?
Yep.
You were showing headphones.
Oh yeah. Oh, you were talking earlier.
Yep.
Yeah. Earlier, here's the headphone box so that all the musicians can hear each other. And each one of these knobs can be assigned a different instrument. So this knob could be drum volume. It wouldn't be all the drums separately. It'd be them as a group. This might be the bass. This might be a guitar. That might be the vocal. That might be a piano. So you can each person can really sort of set their headphones the way they like it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In theory, it's supposed to make my job easier, but oftentimes it doesn't. It's supposed to.
Is that because it's adding so many more variables?
Well, The reason is because it is, people are used to saying, oh, I can't hear the drums, let's turn the drums up.
Yeah.
Then they say, hear the bass, let's turn the bass up. Then they say, oh, I can't hear the guitar, let's turn the guitar up. And then they get back to, oh, I can't hear the drums, let's turn the drums up. So
they all get too loud, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
So what really needs to happen is the first thing you should do is turn something down before you turn something else up. That's
yeah. Okay.
But people have a hard time, remembering that. Let me show you one of my favorite features. This is my grand piano room, and I'm going to show you the ceiling here. I have these little sound clouds. Can you show those?
Mm-hmm.
And those are just sort of minimizing some of the bounce of the ceiling. Mm-hmm. I chose the shape just because I like octagons. There's no really acoustical reason for that. But that's the treatment there. Over in the corner, we have some bass traps, kind of looks like a foam column. And that's to absorb the sound of the corners of rooms. Bass frequencies love to hang out in corners of rooms. So to minimize that boominess, we put some up. And let me show you my favorite thing. We built this. I say we, I didn't, but people that work here do. It looks like a piece of art to me. This is a reflector. It's a diffuser. So let me start that again. This is a diffuser. So if you have a totally flat surface, let me get over here. Yeah, if you have a totally flat surface like this wall, the sound will bounce back. So it hits it, it's flat, it bounces back. If we were to put foam on the wall, it would deaden it and mute the sound. But with this diffuser, because of the different depths and heights and arrangements of these blocks, they were as random as we could make them. The sound hits it, and instead of being muted or bouncing back, it sort of spreads out and fades away. That's oversimplified, but that's kind of the idea. The reason I built this on this wall is because if you look here, I've got a grand piano, and the way this room is shaped, the grand piano is a little closer to this wall than I would like, but I didn't really have a choice in the way the room was set up. So instead, I just built this on the wall, and it sounds gorgeous.
Wow.
I'm going to come around to the other side so you can see the grand piano.
Lid's up.
And you can actually see inside the lid here all the strings and where the microphones are. And so this is a great piano. I'm not going to play, but it's a really bright, very, very great piano. It sounds really good for jazz. It's a really great sounding piano. It sounds real good for classical. And then I have a smaller little grand over here. Let me just walk this way. This sounds a little bit more. Sounds a little bit better for country and rock. It's a little bit warmer sounding. A little bit different flavor.
About 100 years older.
Yeah. And then over here against the wall, you'll see some old electric pianos from Wurlitzer. The tan one is from circa 1968, and it's the sound that you heard Ray Charles use on What I Say, that kind of piano. The black one is from roughly 1973, and was used on Riders of the Storm by the Doors. That kind of, not this specific piano, but this type of piano.
Yeah.
And then if you're a Steve Miller Band fan, you'll recognize some sounds off this little old Korg synthesizer here in the middle. Finally, in this room, as we come all the way to the corner, I've got a Lowry organ. It's been used by Bob Dylan in some of his songs, also used on the Beatles song Strawberry Fields Forever. So that's that organ sound on Strawberry Fields.
Yeah.
Comes from this Lowry organ. And then lastly, in the corner here, I've got some old analog equipment from the 70s that was given to me by the Georgia Music Hall of Fame. When it closed, the people that donated this stuff to the Hall of Fame for an exhibit didn't want it back, but we hated to throw it away. So I show this when I show my students so they can see how people used to record on tape.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then you have to explain tape.
Yeah, then I have to explain what tape is.
Yeah.
But these are the different creative spaces that I use to record all the music we've been talking about and listening to today.
Yeah, beautiful.
And here's where we put our keys.
Oh, yeah.
We just think this is cool.
That's
So it's the plug that you put on a cord for like a guitar cord for a guitar amp.
Right.
And you have just these little, they're just jacks.
Oh, I see. That's great. That's a genuine Fender key hanger, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is my favorite $30 thing in the studio.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's about the only $30 thing in the studio.
So over to the left, I have my computer. That's where everything's recorded to the computer these days. Instead of recording to disc or it's like the CD or the mini disc or the tape or vinyl or wax or whatever, everything's recorded to the computer nowadays. So this is where I have my computer set up, all the converters that take the sound from analog, meaning, well, in this instance, from acoustic, meaning something you hear, and turn it into digital signals that we can process digitally. Those converters are on this side. I have a control surface, so over here on the left, that has my play and record buttons. It also has some faders there that are motorized that I automate things with. So if I've got a volume, if I have something something I want to change the volume of, and I want it to do it every single time I play back, I can literally control this as I'm listening. So let's say a singer's singing kind of loud. They sound pretty good, but one spot's just super loud, and I don't want to compress it. I don't want to use any of my other tools to change that. I can just sit here, and as I'm listening, I go, okay, this next line's going to be loud. Pull it back. The computer records that movement, and then when I'm done with that low part, I bring it back up. The computer will remember that and automate that every time, so it happens every time as I'm playing back. So that's what these are for. They are writable automation. So everything that I do on this control surface, the computer records that information and repeats that motion every time. In the old days, you get everybody in the studio together, and everybody would sit down with different controls. You say, okay, at measure 37, you bring these two faders up, and at measure 45, you bring them back down. And you'd actually have to rehearse the mix, especially with a board that's real big like this. And then as we go down on this far left-hand side, there's some more processors like we saw earlier. And then on the far right-hand side, there are some more keyboard modules. So there's some more sounds there, like for pianos and strings and all kind of different processors over there. So there's even more processors than we saw earlier.
Wow. So, Joey, what we ought to, I think, finish up with is basically what you're doing now and what things people can participate in or follow or anything like that you want to share.
Right now, I'm focused on my story, sharing that like I always do through my music. I'm focused on people who can come and record their music that they've been creating during this difficult time, having them come record and let me help them on their journey. I really take a lot of honor and privilege and pride in being able to help people at the beginning of their journey so they have a wonderful experience and they feel inspired to keep going. So I also do a lot of podcasts, a lot of magazine interviews, talking about my story. And really, one of the big things I've been working on, and this is kind of off topic a little bit, but I've lost 72 pounds.
Wow.
And working on eating healthier and using this time where I have a little more free time than I'd want.
Yeah.
But using it for something positive. I needed to lose weight. I needed to get myself in shape. And I've been doing that. It's a process. It's not easy, but I'm real happy about it. And I lost so much weight that I was able to come off my blood pressure medication. So I'm really doing well with that. As far as how they can participate, if you're interested in my music, I would love for you to check that out. JoeyStuckey.com, JoeyStuckey.com. My studio website is called Shadow Sound Studio, all one word.com. And you can visit me there. And if you're a musician, you're looking for someone to help guide you through the music business, you're looking for someone to help you, write your song, you're looking for someone to help produce your song, I'm glad to be part of that. If you're looking for guitar lessons or anything like that, I can teach all that stuff virtually, and I do. I have several students that are virtual. I have several students that still come to the studio here. I teach music technology, so there are people that send me their mixes, and I critique those and tell them, here's maybe some places you can improve. Here are the things that you've done really well. Here are the places maybe we could study a little bit and try to figure out if we can make that any better. And yes, and I'm all over social media. My Twitter and Instagram handle is @JStuckeyMusic. That's the letter J. And then Facebook.com/Joey Stuckey and Facebook.com/Joey Stuckey Music. And then I also must say I have a YouTube channel, and I really invite you to check that out. I've got a video right now that's got 150,000?
Yep.
150,000 views over the last 2 months, and it's just me playing a guitar with a dollar bill taped around the strings, showing off an old Johnny Cash guitar dollar bill trick. It's a 24 seconds of your time. So if you get a chance, check that out. And I'd love to talk to anybody that wants to talk about music, man. I'm always available.
And what's the best way to contact you for that?
The best way is email, because typically if I'm recording, my phone's turned off.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I'm working, sometimes it's like, oh, it's 2 a.m. and it's too late to call somebody back. So email's really good. And that's simply joey@joeystuckey.com, JOEY @joeystuckey.com.
Great. And what was the second website? You had joeystuckey.com, and there's a website for your studio, right?
Website. And it's Shadow Sound Studio, all one word, and then .com.
Yeah, I can imagine if somebody is at the point of they've got an instrument, maybe a guitar or a piano or something like that, and they're singing with it and they're writing songs and they want to go from that stage into a professional recording level. That would be a good time to talk to you, I would imagine. Or
yeah,
you said you would talk to songwriters in process too, right?
Yeah, I do that too. And look, a lot of people that come to me are just singers. They don't even play an instrument. Mm-hmm. And they have an idea for lyrics and melody. And I have people that send me recordings of themselves on their iPhone just singing the song as they hear it.
Okay.
And I extrapolate from that what the chords should be, and I create the whole song around that.
So you can do that even if they can't come in person, right?
Yeah, so how I would basically do it is the iPhone recording is sufficient for me to build the song around it. In other words, it's sufficient to send me you singing on the phone, and then I can make all the music for you based on what you sang. The iPhone recording's not good enough for me to take that and use that as your lead vocal track. I mean, it just wouldn't be good enough. Right. But you can record your vocals at home and send those to me, and I can mix them in with very little equipment. Or you could go to a studio in your area, record for a simple, like an hour, get your vocal down, send me that file. Or I can send you all my tracks. You can take it to a studio in your area and cut your vocals to it and mix it there. I work with people all over the world, from Japan to the UK, Memphis, Tennessee, Florida, Detroit, Georgia, all over the world, New York. I just did a project for a friend of mine in New York. So, yeah, I work with people all over the world, and we just trade files on the internet.
And how are you going to help people who are trying to write a song? And maybe they're partway into it or something. Yeah,
so basically, in that way, I would come in and say, I'd talk to them about language. And I'd say, okay, this lyric, I think I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm having to figure that out based on what I think you're trying to say. These lyrics are not real clear. How about changing this word to that word that's a little bit more, gives me a little bit more of a mental picture of what you're trying to say.
Right.
They say, hey, I love this song, but the last line of the chorus is distracting to me and takes me out of the moment.
Okay.
Maybe you should consider dropping that line, or maybe changing the melody. Or I might say, hey, your melody is very repetitive all the way through. There's not much change from the verse to the chorus. We need to change that melody in the chorus, so that typically what you want is the chorus to be the biggest part of the song. So if it's not the biggest part of the song, and now that's not to say there aren't songs where the chorus is not the biggest part. There are songs that have been hits where the chorus is not the biggest part of the song. But generally speaking, I think of the chorus as the newspaper headline, and the verses are the detail of that story. So that's kind of how I think about it for the writing process.
So the name and the chorus are going to be what's most easily remembered, I would imagine.
Typically, that is the case. I mean, there's always an exception to the rule, but by and large, you study, like, one of the things I've done in my time when I was in school, and I still do it now, I try to study what makes a hit song. What are the elements to this song being a hit? Why is it resonating with people?
Right.
And things that we can see just scientifically is typically the chorus. If it's a really good chorus, the rest of the song's not as important because that chorus will stick in your head. We call it a hook. And so that hook sticks with you. And people love the song for the chorus. And then eventually they learn the verses too. But it's that chorus that grabs people typically.
And what about if somebody is at some stage with guitar and wants to learn more? What can you do for them?
So with that, we can talk about music theory. I can talk about how notes work together so that you're not having to guess or fumble your way through the process, so that you have an intellectual understanding of what you're doing with your instrument. I can show you finger positions, ways to play the chords easier, ways to approach the instruments, good practice technique, good mental discipline. So it all gets back to just learning your craft. So I can take you into the craft to the minutia, or I can give you the broad strokes. Whatever you need to further your career or further your exploration of music.
And tell them what to spend all the practice time on, I guess.
Absolutely. I have I'm all into muscle memory. I'm really into kinesthetics. I have a whole regimen of how I think you should spend your practice time, which is a whole other long story. But yeah, all that stuff is things we talk about. Okay,
that sounds great. So lots of reasons for people to get in touch with you and hopefully become part of one or more of your projects in some way or other.
I'm always excited to talk to anyone, and I'm always glad to lend the ear and support if I can.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, well, hopefully everybody involved in music is going to start following all that you do. And how much of your music is accessible from joeystuckey.com?
Actually, I'd say probably 85%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, neat. Back when you did, when things were still operating and you did concerts out in the open with, like they did in the old days when people would go and listen to someone playing music live, is any of that recorded on YouTube or anywhere else that people can see?
Mm-hmm. There is, yeah. There's a there's a lot of live video on YouTube. How many videos do I have? 1,000?
Something like that.
It's crazy.
It's not all live.
It's not all live video, but some of it's shot from somebody's cell phone. Some of it's professionally done.
Okay.
Like I did a show at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and that's professionally shot on HD cameras. But then we did a shot at Coney Island Baby, where somebody brought a nice camera and just handheld it for the show and videotaped it. And then we've got me playing at a bar in New York called Bar 9, where my wife was just shooting me on her cell phone.
Okay.
But there's live video out there, and it's everything from covers to originals. I try to put mostly original stuff up, but there's some covers up there.
All right. Yeah, it seems to me the main difference in quality of recordings of live concert type footage is the audio. Some of it sounds really far away, and others is almost like it was a real recording.
Well, it depends on where you're sitting in the room too.
Yeah.
So where the sound man's sitting, it probably sounds pretty good. But if you're further away or closer than that, it can sound a lot different.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that's on YouTube of people recording concerts is just from the audience in a different position,
Yeah, it's mostly not good. And we have a few of those too.
Right. Okay, well, super exciting, and there's all kinds of directions it can go in, so hopefully we'll start some interaction and see what develops. But thank you, Joey. It was really an honor to see your studio and to get to meet you guys and walk around and feel like we should keep it going and see what happens next.
Well, listen, my friend, thank you for what you do, and thank you for letting me be part of it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, really exciting. You're now a permanent part, so
I love it.
You guys have a good rest of the day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, see ya.
Take care.
Okay, you guys, there goes Joey Stuckey, and I hope that you got something good out of that. Thanks very much to Jennifer for helping us out so much, Joey's wife. And I just wanted to bring him in, and I thought the connection through Doug would make it possible, which it did. just to give you one small example of somebody who is taking challenges, and instead of seeing them as discouraging adversity or anything, which you can easily do, we've all done that a lot, seeing it as an opportunity to do something really positive. And in whatever style that applies to each one of our lives, I think we can benefit from it. So it's just meant for some inspiration and also some bonus insight to the inside of a recording music studio business. And Joey's invitation to everybody to be in touch with him if you want to talk about anything related to music at all, Joey at jstuckey.com is really a good invitation to take advantage of. Find out more about what he does. Go to joeystuckey.com and hear his music. And remember, he answered that question about YouTube, that his concert footage is there too. He said 1,000 videos, and that would be fun to take a look at when you get a chance. joeystuckey.com for that, and shadowsoundstudio.com to see what his studio's up to, stay in contact with that, and the different kinds of recording work that he's doing and the lessons that he's offering, a whole range of services that's good to be aware of. And I think that's a pretty good wrap up to the whole thing, a project that actually worked out. I'm glad for that. And remember that we have these Sunday shows every week. It's supposed to be inspiring and educational people or projects that we want to share with you. And then we've got the Saturday shows, Lost Arts Radio Live at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern on every Saturday. And that's usually related to current events. Planetary Healing Club for people that want to go deeper into the work on themselves and their own life with respect to health and consciousness tools that make it easier to upgrade everything that you're doing. That's at planetaryhealingclub.com. Or if there's any questions about that or anything else, or show suggestions or anything, feedback that you want to give us, you can always email it in the contact forms, or richard@lostartsradio.com. And if you want to help us stay on the air and support what we're doing, and you've got the means to do that, there are donate buttons that go to our nonprofit at lostartsradio.com or lostartsresearchinstitute.org or subscribestar.com/lostartsradio. And stay subscribed to our non-censoring platforms, which are increasing now. Subscribestar.com/channel/lostartsradio. And also, subscribestar.com/lostartsradio. Brighteon.com is the channel that doesn't censor, and Brighteon.com/channel/lostartsradio. And we're just getting on BitChute as well, and there's others that may come up in the near future. So stay in touch at lostartsradio.com. Any suggestions, feedback, anything, feel free to send it. And have a great week, and we'll see you here next time. Talk to you soon.
Introducing Lost Arts Radio on Subscribestar.com. Just go to subscribestar.com/lostartsradio to find our rewards program, offering 10 different giving levels starting at just $5 a month. We offer incredible value for any rewards level, from extra monthly interview videos not available publicly to subscription-based Planetary Healing Club videos once, twice, or 3 times a month, to private counseling sessions with Lost Arts Radio host Richard Sachs, to tech help with me, Doug Diamond. We even have one option where you can be the star on Lost Arts Radio as our guest on a specially produced show just for you. We conduct an interview with you and broadcast it to our growing network and listenership. Our Subscribe Star levels are one of a kind and offer great rewards for any budget. Please help support Lost Arts Radio. We can't do it without you. With increasing censorship on many of our channels, we really need your support today to keep doing what we're doing. As Richard says, we're not even at survival level yet. Lost Arts Radio has 3 weekly shows. Lost Arts Radio Live each Saturday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, which is a live stream currently on multiple platforms in case we get banned from some of the larger ones. Right now, we're on 2 YouTube channels, Facebook Live, Periscope, which is Twitter, Twitch, and DLive. You can access these broadcasts by going to www.lostartsradio.com/live for all the links to those channels. The Planetary Healing Club meets right after Lost Arts Radio Live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Saturday nights. And our Sunday show with guests airs at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Sunday nights on our Blog Talk Radio channel, our YouTube channels, Facebook pages, and on Brighteon. Be sure to sign up for our free email list just in case we do get banned on big tech's platforms. It's just a matter of time, really. They don't like the stuff we talk about, and they do not want the truth out there. In fact, they have already attacked us numerous times. Join our free email list so we can let you know where we are and how to access our shows. The sign-up button is right on the top right on most pages of our website. The best starting point for all things Lost Arts Radio is our main site, lostartsradio.com, where you can find the hottest news selection videos that we curate just for you. Those are on the homepage and added to daily, as well as articles and breaking news about information you really need to know. Our show archives, the 10 most recent shows, are right on our homepage, as well as our Blog Talk Radio page at blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio, or just click the All Things Radio Show tab right on our website. We're in the podcast directory on iTunes, and all of our shows except the banned ones are on our YouTube channels at Lost Arts Radio and at Diamond Disc. Our Brighteon page is really taking off, and we often have editors' picks videos right on their homepage. Visit brighteon.com/channel/LostArtsRadio. On our site, you can also access our free listener forum as well as sign up for the Planetary Healing Club, which is just $25 a month, where you get private access to a one-on-one interaction with host Richard Sachs and myself and the other club members who participate live. More info can be found at planetaryhealingclub.com. We're providing solutions in there to make the world a better place. Come join us. Stay tuned, because up next, you'll get to hear a really great song by an independent artist that we're doing our best to support. Go to lostartsradio.com/music for the full list of all the great songs and bands that we spin on our audio-only podcast shows. If you're in a band and want to submit a song for consideration for airplay on Lost Arts Radio, visit my website at diamonddiscaudio.com for more information about the music placement, mastering, and mixing work that I do. Thanks again for listening to and supporting Lost Arts Radio. We love having you as part of our family to learn, experience, and grow with.
We're crazy when we are together. Her smile brings sunny weather. There ain't nothing we can't figure out. When I'm holding her, darling, there's no doubt. I can see this lasting forever. Sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, ain't it good to be in love? Sha-la-la. To be